Good afternoon, Coach Frazier. How you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing well, George. How are you?
Very well, doing well. Just interesting. I just was listening to Jim Rome show, and he had Christian Benford on. And is he always a low-key guy? We could hear him, but he was kind of. It was like nothing phases him. Is that the kind of type of player he is? He's just an even keel type of guy.
He really is. Sounds like that interview really displayed his personality.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, he's a low-key guy, but he's an intense guy on the football field. He plays hard, he plays fast, but he's not a very loquacious guy. He's not going to be doing a lot of talking and messing around. That's not who he is.
Yes, and it was Villanova. What was it that brought you? I noticed he was Rookie of the Year his freshman year there in the CAA. I don't know what that is, that conference there in the that Villanova plays in. What was it that brought your attention to him as a possible option?
Where when we were looking at his tape prior to the draft, we saw a guy who was just consistently making plays, been around the ball and showed good coverage ability, but played with a lot of poise, George, just under control all the time, that yet was always in great position. And so when you get guys like that are athletic, they're smart, always putting themselves in position to make plays, they kind of get your, they get your interest, pique your interest. And that's exactly what happened with Christian. And then we flew him in, had a chance to interview him, talk to him, get to know him. And just like what you saw in that Jim Rome interview is what we saw. He was kind of low key. We had to get him to speak up sometimes, but you could tell that he knew the game and he was a really solid person as well.
Excellent. Man, some of those descriptions, that sound like you. Sound like the way you, back when you were playing. That's almost good, definitely those same similar qualities.
Yeah.
And last but not least, with the defensive scheme, I noticed Matt Stafford said some of the schemes that you threw at him, he said he hadn't seen those in years, and it took him back a step. How's your process? Is it something that you see on film that you think, and then come up with the different schemes and the disguises that you have? Because it seems like your top quality is disguising the coverage. These quarterbacks, almost all of them say that they have trouble when they play Buffalo. They can't figure out what the coverages are.
Right. Well, credit John Butler and Jimmy Salgado. John working with our secondary, Jimmy working primarily with our safeties, and then Bobby Babich with our linebackers are doing a great job of moving around and giving the opposing opponent different looks and not letting them be able to zero in on a certain look. And that has caused some confusion with quarterbacks, and it worked effectively for us on Thursday night. So our guys did a great job of accepting the game plan, and the coaches did a great job of really getting those players to execute.
Well, thank you, Coach Frazier, for your time, and have a great week coming up. Good luck with Tennessee this next weekend.
Thank you.
Hey, Leslie, you guys have a little bit of a longer week here to prepare for the Tennessee Titans. But last year when you guys faced them, I know Derrick Henry had that really long rushing touchdown and then ended up tacking on a couple more toward the end of the game. So why do you think this new group of defensive linemen is up to the task of stopping him? And how do you think you guys need to be able to do that?
Well, Matt, he's an outstanding back. I mean, he's capable of breaking a long run at any given moment. We'll have to go on the field and really show that we can stop him. We don't know that yet. We haven't gone against him with this group. We feel very confident that we'll be able to do a good job, but we also know he's an excellent back and he's very capable of breaking a long run. Our goal is to limit that, of course, and to really make it hard for him and the rest of their offense. And we're going to do our very best to get that done.
Thanks, Leslie.
You're welcome, Matt.
Hi, Leslie. Adam Benini.
Yeah.
I just wanted to, after kind of watching the film and everything, it sure looked like the way the defense executed in LA was kind of by design, how you guys built that thing and upgraded the front. But I'm interested from your perspective, how things graded out as you watched the film, what your overall thoughts were on the execution one game in.
Yeah, considering all things considered, Adam, coming out of training camp where you can't do a lot of live tackling and hitting and doing things from a live standpoint, to come away from that game holding that team to less than 300 yards of total offense and tackling as well as we tackled, and then to come away with the takeaways and the splash plays by our defensive line, we were overall really pleased with the production as well as the play by our players. They did a terrific job. It's sometimes hard to get a gauge when you don't play the guys very much in the preseason. You're kind of like, just like the fans a little bit, wondering how we're going to respond. And our guys did a terrific job in the way they responded. And a lot of that credit goes to the type of training camp and all-season program that Sean and our sports science department put together to prepare us for that ball game.
Specifically, is that what you expected from Von Miller?
Yeah, you hope that he's going to go out and have the impact that he had. You don't know until you actually get out there and do it, but his history says, yes, that's what you can expect. And sure enough, he had a major impact on the game.
Thank you, Leslie.
You're welcome.
Hey, Coach. Good afternoon. How are you?
Hey, what's going on, sir?
Hey, take us back into, you get Von in March. I think I asked you something at the time about, are you drawing up plays on napkins for him because you're getting excited or something like that? And what the process was like to kind of figure out how to use him within the framework of your offense and given all the different skill sets and things he can do, what that was like for the last several months for you guys leading up to Thursday.
Oh, Sal, we've had a lot of discussions about Von's usage along with how to use him. And between myself, Eric Washington, our assistant defensive line coach, Marcus West, and then bringing Sean in on some of those conversations as well. And of course, getting an exchange from Von, we've had a lot of conversations about what's best and what's the best thing to do in practice and then on to games as well. And fortunate for us, it worked out just like we drew it up. We got him the number of reps that we needed without overextending him, but also getting the production at the same time. And but to answer your question, there were a lot of discussions about how we wanted to get this done, and it'll be ongoing, Sal. It's not over with yet. Every week is going to be a little bit different in how we approach each opponent and how we want to utilize Von's talent.
That said, you didn't blitz at all, which is very rare. Just the philosophy of that, the changing philosophy in the league, maybe over the last whatever years, and just your own independent philosophy. I mean, obviously it's personnel based, it's game to game. We know that, but as a defensive coordinator, can you kind of speak to how much that's a dream to be able to get there with 4 and not have to blitz?
Well, you're right. That is a coordinator's dream. It's not always the case, as you know, for different reasons and usually personnel. And there haven't been many games that we've had where we didn't blitz, but we had the luxury with the way the game was going on Thursday night and where our guys were performing up front that we could do what we did. And, ideally, that's how you want to do it. And it's a passing league today. These teams are going to throw it around, and it's not. It's so often that you see teams throw for over 300 yards today. It's just common, and a lot of times that's because you have to bring 5, 6 guys, and you expose your secondary at times, and sometimes you get them, but sometimes they get you as well. But fortunately for us, we were able to in that ball game do it with 4, get the pressure on the quarterback, and get the ball to come out the way we wanted it to. But some of the players said after the game in the locker room and even in our meetings, our defensive line, they were like, "Way to go, coach," without any pressure. And I said, "Let me tell you guys, I can't promise you it's going to always be that way, but hey, y'all keep doing what you're doing, it'll look like that." So it worked out in that game, but every game is a little bit different. You never know.
I love it. All right, thanks, Coach. See you this week.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, Leslie, John Worrell.
Hey, John.
Yeah, Sal kind of took my question about not blitzing, but let me turn it around then for you. As successful as you were going up against a team that likes to pass, what are now the challenge and proving that you can get there with 4? What are now the challenges of facing a team that's known for a little bit more of a ground game and so you can check the pass defense off? How do you check the run defense off, and how do you look forward to checking off the run defense this weekend or Monday?
Yeah. I guess the Titans, they present a different problem for sure because of the running back that they have in Derrick Henry, who is outstanding. So you really got to do a great job of stopping the run early on. That makes all the difference in the world, and that's going to be a tremendous challenge for us. And we're going to try to put together a game plan that will help limit those big plays by Derrick Henry in that offense. But you have to get into it and you have to go out and play the game, and we'll have a plan, but then we got to go out and execute that plan, and hopefully we can get it done.
Does it, I mean, I know teams change over the course of different seasons, but does it help to know that you kind of have an idea of what their identity is? And, I guess in comparison, they know kind of what the identity is of your team as well. But does it help especially early in the season when it comes to a game planning way?
I think it always helps if you have a good idea of what that opponent does. Now, it's another thing to go out and stop that opponent once you know. I mean, like you said, some people, teams we play, they have an idea what type of coverages we're going to play, what type of front we're going to play. But it's another thing to have success against that front, against those coverages, and vice versa for us. We have an idea what Tennessee is going to do, but to go out and stop and contain that run game along with their play action pass, their boot game, their shots down the field. I mean, you got to go out and play the game and execute and make the plays.
Thanks, Leslie.
You're welcome.
Hey, Leslie. It sometimes feels like the addition of DaQuan Jones takes a bit of a backseat to all the other additions you guys made this year, just considering all the splashy moves. What has he brought to this team? What have you seen out of him so far?
Man, I tell you, Kat, I'm glad you asked that question because I do agree with you that DaQuan kind of gets lost in the shuffle, but DQ has really brought a calmness to what we do in the D-line room. We have some big personalities in there now, some guys who demand a lot of attention and like attention as well. And DQ is kind of like in the background, but he's a steady guy who you can always count on in practice. And you saw what he can do in the games. And throughout his career, he's been an impact player, but kind of like in the background. But I know myself and the coaches on our staff, we've always kind of admired his play from a distance. And when I found out from Brandon and Sean that we had a chance to get him, I was just thrilled, Catherine, because I knew this guy's a really solid player and an impact player, doesn't get all the headlines, but just a tremendous football player. And then after being around him and just observing his personality, he just brings a professionalism to our defensive line room, our defense, with his work ethic, the way he takes notes, the questions that he asks. And then he's a heck of a football player as well. He's really, really been good for us. And we expect him to continue to be that way throughout the season because that's the way he's been throughout his career.
When you mentioned that calmness and how it can balance out a room with personalities like that, is that something y'all sought, or was that just, it kind of happened and it's worked out really great since?
I think maybe Brandon and Sean had that in mind. They probably knew more about his background than I did at the time. I knew him as a football player, not so much as a person, although one of our coaches, John Butler, was with DQ at Penn State, so he had some familiarity with him. But that balance that he's brought is something that's needed when you're trying to develop good chemistry with some new faces to your defense, and to have a guy who can accept his role, who has the success that he's had in the league, it sends a message to the rest of the guys in that room. So it's been really good in that way.
Awesome. Thank you, Leslie.
You're welcome.
Hey, Leslie, back to the pressure generated by the front four. I think there was a stat out there that Jordan Phillips had the most on the team. Were there signs that he was building towards a performance like that in preseason? And if not, maybe what was encouraging about the way he was able to kind of rise to the occasion in the first game?
Well, I really get excited about Jordan. As you know, he's been with us before and was very productive on our defensive line. And to have him back, I don't want to say I was surprised by his production on Thursday night, because like you mentioned, he had done a lot of good things in training camp, but also know his history as a Buffalo Bill. He's been a force that offensive lines have had to deal with. And to get him back and to go see him play the way he played on Thursday night gets all of us excited because to have an Ed Oliver, or Jordan Phillips, DaQuan, or Tim Settle, those guys giving you that push up the middle really helps our edge rushers. So it's great to see Jordan back. And to answer your question, yes, I did kind of expect and hope that we would see what we saw Thursday night based on what we saw in the off season, as well as what we saw in training camp.
Hey Leslie, I was curious first, are you anticipating having Ed this week, or where do you kind of view his potential participation for Monday?
Well, Elaine, I think Sean kind of addressed where he is earlier, and that's kind of where things are now. We're just waiting to see, waiting to find out from our trainers what his availability would be.
Cool. And then I was curious on a separate note, with Kyer and Christian kind of almost going 50-50 there with the snaps, how do you kind of manage something like that? And is there any concern that, there's a groove they can kind of get in if you're playing series after series and bringing that up, taking one guy off? Like, how do you kind of manage that and as they're developing as players?
Yeah, for me, Elena, we'll talk about it prior to the game. Like, we'll talk about it this week. I'll talk it over with our secondary coach, John Butler, along with Jimmy Salgado, about those guys' reps. But once we get in the game, my mind is removed from that. They kind of have to handle what we talked about. And we've talked about if a guy gets in a groove, leave him out there a little bit longer. But that's all circumstantial. So we have a plan, and those guys do a really good job of keeping up with the numbers and trying to balance that out.
Did you feel like it worked well with how they both played against the Rams? Were you happy with, both of them out there?
Oh, absolutely. They both played extremely well, and they handled the rotation very good. So we were excited about when we had a chance to watch the tape to see how they both performed. It was about like we had hoped that it would be.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's all the questions we have for today. Thanks, Leslie.
You're welcome.